So did, or has anybody in the room seen the movie Noah?
No, we heard the critiques.
Well, you may not want to go and see the movie Noah after you hear the critiques. Yes, Pastor Robert and I had a little movie date yesterday. Best thing about it was the popcorn, I believe. I've taken a different viewpoint because it struck me different. I mean, Robert was there, I believe. I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth. You were there, definitely looking at it as a pastor and what was scripturally incorrect. I mean, I saw it too. However, there were other things that leapt out at me. And instead of preventing the destruction of mankind, Darren Aronofsky, who is the co-writer of Noah and the executive producer, had his character Noah welcome the destruction of mankind until a last-minute change of heart in the movie. It's basically an epic disaster movie, is what it is. If you break it down, it's typical Hollywood disaster, and to Hollywood's credit, the cinematography was spectacular. You know, all the Hollywood computer-generated images were breathtaking. Everything you would expect Hollywood to put together, they did on this movie. But what really struck me is how the hatefulness, the hatred of mankind was portrayed. Because that's about the only way I could describe a film that just squeezes entertainment out of the end of all people on the earth. And that's exactly what Aronofsky was trying to do. And Noah, of course, is played by Russell Crowe. And he has, throughout this movie, from beginning to end, this underlying, this very deep, simmering hatred for mankind. Because as he portrays it, and well, the Bible tells us too, I mean, civilization at that time was ruled by rape and savagery. It was not a pleasant place. And in the movie, Noah, meanwhile, amidst all of this that's going on, all of this evil wickedness, he's teaching his children to find joy and respect even the smallest flower. Now, most disaster movies would end when a great flood comes and our hero saves his family. Not so with the movie. Noah kind of unfolds, the story continues, and it takes this hatred of mankind to its logical endpoint. Because once everybody's on board the ark, Noah receives another message from God telling him that mankind is supposed to end with him and his family. And since his daughter-in-law is on the ark, and she's played by Emma Watson, the actress, and she's pregnant, Noah's message from God is that he is supposed to, once the grandchild is born, murder it if it's a baby girl, because the girl would have the capability of repopulating the planet with people. Mankind basically is, we're told through the movie's depiction, is a failed experiment. Which is actually, when you break it down, that's a pretty harsh statement for any Hollywood movie to make, but that's basically what we're shown. And part of it may be, and may come from the fact that Noah's anxiety is not just about mankind's existence, but about what mankind has done to the planet. Because there's all kinds of direct script references in the movie that man is a failure, is a steward of earth, and that's the primary reason that Creator God is going to extinguish all of mankind from the planet. Well, Mr. Aronofsky, the producer, actually I saw this before the movie was released. I saw him in an interview, and he referred to Noah in this interview as, he called him the first environmentalist. So you can see how he's tying this, weaving it into the plot line. The first third of the movie, Noah is basically built up to be this saint-like hero, before the next act just transforms him completely into this murderous psychopath. And in this way, the film challenges the viewers' hatred and of mankind. Because a lot of us, I think, probably have thought, maybe even have muttered out loud, that you wonder about people in general out there in the world. Are they just ultimately, generally terrible and horrible people? So the film is trying to get us to think, is it time to really just totally give up on mankind entirely? And ultimately, Noah, the movie, settles on this one man's capacity to love his family as justification for the entire species' continued existence. And the movie actually ends with this simplistic hope that it's going to be this new generation is going to be kinder, the future is going to be better that way, which is basically an earnest, honest plea to the viewer, but it's intended to be a happy ending, but it's not really earned that way at all. Because in the movie, in Darren Aronofsky's version of Noah, Adam and Eve appear as these lumescent, fleshless figures right up until the moment that they eat the forbidden fruit. And this is just one of a number of imaginative details, let's put it that way, imaginative details that Mr. Aronofsky has. He has these giant, Robert and I refer to them as rock people. They're lava monster-like people that actually caused a lot of reviewers. I read some reviews about this and saw some other ones, and most of the reviewers were just kind of scratching their head. They couldn't figure this all out. They are referred to as the Watchers in the movie, these lava monsters, these big creatures, because the reviewers that I thought were the conservative-minded evangelicals kind of wrote off the film and at this point and other points as Aronofsky just taking way too many liberties with the text of Genesis. And the more liberal-minded reviewers, that group was in favor of cutting the director a little bit of slack because he is a professed atheist. So they figured, well, okay, let's give him some slack here on this, because we're not going to expect him to have the same ideas of the Bible and sacred texts that a Bible believer would have. However, I believe, this is my take on it, I believe that both of those viewpoints, both of those groups missed the mark entirely. Aronofsky has not taken liberties with anything whatsoever because his reference text is not the Bible. Not at all. And in his defense, I suppose we can remember, because leading up to the movie's release into theaters, all the pre-promotion and all the pre-advertising, none said that this is the biblical account of Noah. It was never advertised that way. And then, of course, in our day and age of the leftover atmosphere of Christianity, when somebody says Noah, immediately a Bible believer will think, oh, well, this is all about the Bible. And if you still want to go to view it with that in mind, that it's going to be a biblical adaptation, you're going to be sadly disappointed, and you're going to say, I've wasted a whole lot of money here. Because it's not anywhere close to what the Bible story of Noah is. Let me go back to Adam and Eve as how they're depicted in the movie Noah, the luminescent Adam and Eve, our parents. This is one common thread of the ancient religion of Gnosticism, of Kabbalah, of Luciferianism, as it's called now. I dug up a second century AD description about what a sect called the Ophites believed. They were Gnostics. Quote, Adam and Eve formerly had light, were luminous, and so to speak had spiritual bodies as they had been fashioned. But when they came here, meaning earth, the bodies became dark, fat, and idle. I take offense at that. That's actually a quote from Irenaeus of Lyon. He wrote, "Against heresies." Now, closely related to Gnosticism is that in Judaism, that mystical approach is called Kabbalah, which of course Madonna, the singer, made quite popular within the last decade. They hold a similar view as to what I just described, because Kabbalah is essentially the same as, well, it's Jewish Gnosticism. Here's a quote from Kabbalah's writings. "Before they were beguiled by the subtleness of the serpent, Adam and Eve were not only exempt from the need of a body, but did not even have a body. That is to say, they were not of the earth." Here's a quote from the Zohar, which is the sacred text of Kabbalah. Quote, "When our forefather Adam inhabited the Garden of Eden, he was clothed, as all are in heaven, with a garment made of the higher light. When he was driven from the Garden of Eden and was compelled to submit to the needs of this world, what happened? God, the scriptures tell us, made Adam and his wife tunics of skin. He clothed them. For before this, they had tunics of light, the higher light used in Eden." That's pretty way out there, isn't it? That's really serious. That's pretty obscure. However, I did a little searching and researching after coming home from the movie on Darren Aronofsky, the co-writer and the producer. He was made another film in the late 90s. I think it was 98 maybe. It was called Pi.
Yes.
P-I. The mathematical term, pi. And that's exactly what the movie was about. It was about this mathematical genius who desires to find out whether or not he can explain natural life through the higher form of mathematics. Well, that's Kabbalah, because Kabbalah and the mysticism of it is all about numerical values and of the Hebrew letters and the codes that they put together. And if you think that's a coincidence that Mr. Aronofsky dealt with Kabbalah in the movie Pi and then basically went away until returning now most prominently with Noah, then you're wrong. The world of Aronofsky's Noah is a thoroughly Gnostic, Kabbalistic, Luciferian look at his interpretation of what Noah, the story, is all about. It's the Gnosticism it's a graded universe. It's higher and lower. The spiritual is good, and it's way, way, way up there, where the unspeaking God dwells, and the material world, according to Gnosticism and Kabbalism, is bad, and it's way, 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 way down here, where our spirits and the material possessions and our material flesh reside. And this is not true just of fallen sons and daughters of Adam and Eve, but of fallen angels, who are, as I mentioned before, in the movie, depicted as being these spirits trapped in these material bodies that are made of cooled, molten lava, the lava monsters or the rock people. Now, admittedly, they make pretty nifty characters on screen. But they're also notorious in Gnostic teachings and Kabbalistic traditions. The Gnostics refer to these things as archons, A-R-C-H-O-N-S, which means they are lesser divine beings or angels who aid the Creator in forming the visible universe. And Kabbalah has just a whole myriad, just a pantheon of angelic beings all up and down the ladder of divine being. And fallen angels, according to the traditions and customs of Kabbalah and Gnosticism, are never really totally fallen in this brand of mysticism. To quote the Zohar again, that sacred text of Kabbalah, "All things of which the world consists, the spirit as well as the body, will return to the principle and the root from which they came." That's exactly what happened in the movie. Do you remember that, Judy? I think you said you saw the movie. Do you remember when those big rock people were fighting just before everybody's trying to get on board the ark? what happened? They split open, they were redeemed, and that beam of light, like a tractor beam, they returned to their principle, their roots. And that's exactly how it is depicted right out of Kabbalah in the movies. Speaking of the Zohar, this is one of the first things that I noticed when we started watching the movie. I mentioned it to Robert, that kind of got my attention, that this is totally coming from this Luciferian outlook. It was just minutes into the film. Noah and his family are trekking across the wasteland, and Shem asks his father, is this a Zohar mine? They refer to it in the movie. It was just kind of a wasteland area that had a crevice and looked like somebody had been digging or mining in there. Yeah, Zohar. It's absolutely used right in the movie. And the whole movie, to my way of looking at it, is figuratively a Zohar mine. If there was any doubt about these watchers, these rock people, these lava monsters, Aronofsky gives them a lot of names. He calls one Semyaza, he calls another one Magog, he calls another one Ramiel, which are all well-known demons in Jewish mystical tradition. Not only in Kabbalah, but also in the book of 1st Enoch. Demons being redeemed. How biblical is that? But that's what's depicted in the movie. Actually, according to Kabbalah, nothing is absolutely bad. Nothing is accursed forever. Not even the archangel of evil, or the venomous beast, as he's sometimes called. There will come a time, this is according to Kabbalah and Gnosticism, there will come a time when he will recover his name, the archangel of evil, and his angelic nature. Again, pretty weird, isn't it? Way out there. But you know what? Everybody in the movie seems to worship the Creator. They refer to the Creator. So surely you figure, okay, well, that's good. They're talking about a Creator. Except that Gnostics and Luciferians, Kabbalists, when they speak about the Creator, they're not talking about God. I mean, here in this sanctuary and in this world of affluent living off the fruits of Christianity, whenever we hear that term Creator, we immediately think it's denoting the true and one living Almighty God. Here's a little Gnosticism 101 for everybody. The Creator of the material world, according to their writings, is an ignorant, arrogant, jealous, exclusive, violent, low-level, bastard son of a low-level deity. He's responsible for the creation of the unspiritual world of flesh and matter. And he himself is so ignorant of the spiritual world, he thinks himself the only God and demands absolute obedience. This is how Luciferians walk through the world. They believe Lucifer, the light bringer, is the actual son of the one and only God, and Jesus is the bad guy. They just flip it around to suit themselves. Okay, so in case you lost a little bit of the plot line, in other words, what I've just described is intending us, those who watch the movie, to realize that the serpent in the garden in the Bible was right all along. This God, this Creator that is being worshipped by Noah and the rest of the characters in the movie, is withholding something from Adam and Eve, right? Like we're told, or like the lies that the serpent told in the garden. And the serpent is portrayed as the true divinity itself. That's the world of Gnostic mysticism and Kabbalism. And it's just a myriad of different varieties that they weave into their beliefs. But generally speaking, they hold one common thread, one common belief. And that is that the serpent, they refer to the serpent as Sophia, or mother, or wisdom. So the serpent represents the true divine, and the claims of the Creator are false. So is the serpent a major character in the movie, Noah? You bet. The movie opens up, and within the first 5 minutes or so, we're shown Lamech, about to bless his son, who is Noah. And Noah was probably maybe 10, 11, 12 years old at the time. And what I found, again, immediately very strange about this scene is that Lamech, who is the patriarch of this supposedly godly family, he takes out a sacred relic. You know what that sacred relic was? The skin of the serpent from the Garden of Eden. And he wraps it around his arm, and he stretches out his hand to touch his son Noah, to give him the blessing, except just as that's about to happen, these band of marauders, and even Noah says, men, or Lamech says, men, and he sends his son running off to hide behind the rocks, because, again, that's that basic hatred of mankind being depicted. So Noah never really gets the complete blessing of his father Lamech, because the villain of the movie, the bad guy of the movie, Tubal-Cain, shows up with his marauding men, and they kill Lamech, and Tubal-Cain takes the serpent skin. Now, the skin, so Noah doesn't receive the blessing of the serpent skin, and the serpent skin doesn't light up magically or anything like that. So apparently Tubal-Cain, after he wraps it around his arm, nothing changes. So apparently he didn't get enlightened either, illumined at that very time. And that's why everybody in this movie, including the bad guy and the good guy, Noah and Tubal-Cain, is worshiping the Creator. They are all depicted to be deluded. Let me clear something up here too. Lots of reviewers, or some of the reviewers anyways that I saw, expressed a lot of bewilderment over the fact that there aren't any likable characters in this movie, and that they all seem to be worshiping the same God, the same Creator, because Tubal-Cain and his clan are the wicked bunch. They're the evildoers. They're running around causing havoc. And as it turns out, Noah's pretty bad himself, especially when he abandons Ham's girlfriend and almost decides he's going to put the knife in the two newborn granddaughters that they have on the ark. And, a lot of people thought that this was some kind of profound commentary on how there's evil in all of us. Well, here's an excerpt, again from the Zohar, from the sacred text of Kabbalah. Quote, two beings, Adam and Nakash, the serpent, had intercourse with Eve. I think we've heard the story a time or two in here. And she conceived from both and bore two children, fraternal twin boys. Each followed one of the male parents. And their spirits parted, one to this side, one to the other, and similarly their characters. On the side of Cain are all the haunts of the evil species, and from the side of Abel comes a more merciful class, yet not wholly beneficial. Good wine mixed with bad. End quote. That is a description of the plotline of Noah to a T. So everybody is worshiping the evil deity in the movie who wants to destroy everybody. By the way, in Kabbalah, their beliefs, their mystical beliefs, it tells those who study into it that many worlds have already been created and destroyed. So both Tubal-Cain, the bad guy in the Noah movie, and Noah himself have identical scenes, not at the same time, but identical scenes. They're both out looking into the heavens and asking, why don't you speak to me, Creator? And we're shown as viewers, well, the Creator's just this old, wrathful, mean God. He's abandoning Tubal-Cain and his guys, and he's abandoning Noah and his family. He wants everybody killed. That's what the movie shows us through Aronofsky. Noah is given a vision of all the coming deluge. There's a scene that's, again, spectacularly... The cinematography is brilliant. It's typical Hollywood. But in this vision that Noah gets, he's drowning, and as he's going down, the animals are floating up to the surface, to the safety of the ark. And no indication whatsoever is given that Noah is to be saved, because, like I said, he's sinking. The animals, the innocents, as they're referred to, because all of mankind is evil and wicked, so they have to go. But the innocents, the animals, are coming up to the ark. That's what Noah's dream is like. And many reviewers again thought Noah's change into this homicidal maniac once he gets on the ark, wanting to kill his son's 2 newborn daughters, was kind of a weird plot twist. However, when you know from where the producer is coming, it's not weird at all, because what Aronofsky is trying to do here is to show us that Noah is worshiping a false homicidal maniac of a god. Because the more faithful and godly Noah in the movie becomes, the more homicidal he's portrayed to be. He just becomes, because he's in the image of the Creator. And the Creator, after all, according to Aronofsky and his Kabbalistic and Luciferian outlook, is the bad guy. Lucifer's the good guy. That's exactly what's going on there. Tubal-Cain, the bad guy, at one point he's talking about, well, he talks about it continually, but one scene I remember quite vividly is he's having a conversation with the Creator, and he says, you made me in your image, Creator God. And he's the bad guy, and Noah is serving this same Creator. And when he finally gets to the point, when Noah finally gets to the point where he cannot wipe out everybody on the ark, he says, he changes his mind. He's about to stab the 2 little young granddaughters that were just born, and then he backs off and he says, where is it here? When I looked at those 2 girls, my heart was filled with nothing but love. And now, Noah in the movie has something the Creator doesn't have. He has love. He has mercy. But where did he get that? And why now in the movie? Because in the scene immediately before this one, he just finishes killing Tubal-Cain and retrieving the snake skin from him. And now all of a sudden he has love. He has mercy. Because he's attained the wisdom, the light, the true light, according to the Kabbalah and the Gnosticism. Okay, I'm almost done. The rainbows at the end of the movie, after the deluge is finished, by the way, don't come because God makes a covenant with Noah. The rainbows appear after Noah sobers up, because he's been drinking out there on the beach for quite a bit. That's when the rainbows appear. Noah sobers up and he embraces the serpent. He wraps the skin around his forearm and he blesses his family. So the movie does not portray that it is God's commission to them to go now multiply, be fruitful, and replenish the earth. But Noah, in first person, says, I, and he's wearing his serpent talisman. Oh, by the way, it's not accidental that the rainbows are all circular, because that's how they appear in the movie. The circle, according to Kabbalah, denotes oneness, or like everything is connected. So they're circular in the movie. And this is a real theme change in the movie, because Noah was in a drunken stupor, and now all of a sudden he's sober and enlightened. He's got the snake skin. Filmmakers never do that by accident. Never do they do something like that. Aronofsky wanted to show Noah transcended, outgrown. He's no longer this homicidal, murderous maniac, worshipping a jealous deity who wants all mankind wiped off the face of the earth because of the snake skin. He's now walking in love, walking in wisdom, walking in understanding. There is so much Kabbalistic imagery in the movie, and quotations and themes that, I just picked this up in one single viewing. For example, since Kabbalah takes all kinds of flights of fantasy, generally based on Hebrew letters and numbers, I mentioned that earlier. One thing I did notice, that all those rock people, those lava monsters, the so-called watchers, were all shaped like Hebrew letters. I could probably figure out more, but you couldn't pay me enough to go back and see the movie again. cinematically and the way it's filmed, it's pretty spectacular. There's no two ways about it. But Darren Aronofsky, the co-writer and producer of the movie, has produced a retelling of the Noah story without any references to the Bible text at all. And this was not, as he had claimed, just a storied tradition of run-of-the-mill Jewish midrash, which is the term applied to Kabbalah. This was a thoroughly pagan retelling of the Noah story, direct from cabalistic and Gnostic sources, Luciferian sources. And to my mind, there is absolutely no doubt about this. So let me tell you what the real scandal in all of this is. It isn't that Aronofsky made a film that departed from the biblical story. It isn't that the disappointed and overheated Christian critics had expectations set way too high. The scandal of all of this is that of all the Christian leaders, I'm talking leaders from the pulpit, Christian leaders, so-called professing Christian leaders, who went to great lengths to endorse this movie for whatever reasons. Somebody said, well, it's a great sermon, I can, it's up to date, I can build a sermon around it, or it's a good conversation starter, or at least Hollywood is doing something about the Bible. And all of the Christian leaders who panned it for not following the Bible, not one of them that I know of, not one of them could identify a blatantly Gnostic, Luciferian subversion of the biblical story when it was right in front of their eyeballs. Not a one that I've seen or read or heard. Not a one. Christian leaders. They panned it, they gave it a thumbs up for their reasons, but not one that I've seen picked up on this. I believe that Mr. Aronofsky, the producer, did this as an experiment to make fools of believers. I really do. In effect, he has said, you know what? You are so ignorant of the Bible. You call yourselves Christians. You call yourself believers. You are so ignorant of what is the truth of the Bible that I can put Noah, granted it was Russell Crowe, up there on the big screen, and you will pay your good money, and you will watch it, and you will applaud it, and you will make my company more money, even though I purposely depicted Noah as a son of Satan. That's, I believe, what he really... Because in Gnosticism, in Kabbalism, in Luciferianism, it's a big experiment, too, in all of this, because in that way of mysticism, only the elite are in the know. They're the ones that have the secret information, and the rest of us plebes, the goyim, are the ones that are duped and the ignorant fools. And I believe that's what the true story, at least from my critique and review of this, it's intended to illustrate the Gnostic, Luciferian premise. We're the ones, believers, who should know better, that are being duped, and we are the fools. And it's time for Christians, professing Christians, believers, to just wake up and not spend your money on these movies. The end.